Years ago, I remember I think I was finishing up school, and somehow I was doing a goal setting exercise. And it was a pretty standard exercise where it's like, what do you want in 3 years time or 5 years time? Or what do you want if, if you could have anything? And I wrote a bunch of stuff down, and I remember that almost as I was writing things, there was a voice in my head that immediately said, this isn't possible. And and I realized also, even at that time, that there were many things that I wouldn't even write down, because kind of that voice saying that I couldn't do something got there before my pen could even hit the paper. And there was a feeling of, if you feel like something's not possible, why even bother writing it down? And why even have the hope? Because if you have the hope, then you might be disappointed later. So that was the thinking. And it's something that I noticed over the years, that it was like my brain wouldn't even let me see or imagine certain possibilities unless I thought it was possible. So I'd sort of get stuck in a catch-22, because the minute I would think something, I'd think that's not possible. So my brain wouldn't let the fantasy play out. Ironically, what I've realized over the years, like playing with goal setting, and is that sometimes what seems impossible becomes possible, and sometimes it's good and powerful to start with something and at least capture it, even though you think it's not possible. And one thing I've come to learn is that imagining something as if it were possible, that alone is pleasurable, and it's rich, and it's something that you can enjoy and sometimes learn from. And if there's anything I've learned again and again how wrong I was about what things I could do. I surprised myself many times. So what I like to do now is, when I come up with something that I just think it's like, that's pretty cool, I'd like that, I write it down, I imagine it, I picture it. We've all heard different visualization exercises, but I recommend really just enjoying a fantasy of what if you were experiencing whatever it is you want to experience. I was talking to somebody recently, and they said, well, this is the job that I'd like to have, but I know that's not possible. And so that's the exact situation I'm talking about. And when you notice that moment, just think, okay, maybe it's not possible. Like maybe you're not going to go back and go to med school and be a surgeon, but why not have fun imagining what that might be like? You may even find that you try it out in your imagination and that you don't like it, but you also might have a lot of fun doing that thought experiment. And there are a couple ways you can do it. You can picture yourself as if you were, watching a movie, seeing yourself in the movie doing the thing. And then also you can step in and imagine that you're in the movie and you're living this experience. I find that it's a very valuable exercise, because at least you can identify what are the things in that fantasy that you really enjoy. Because even if you can't get that particular goal, there may be a lot of other places where you can have that experience. you know, in an earlier talk, I was talking about when I decided to go back to school, and I noticed that I had a belief that I wasn't somebody who could go back to school. Now, if I had done this exercise then, I would realize like what I like in the fantasy is I like learning, I like being in classes, I like interacting with other people who are up to really interesting stuff. And just knowing that I can do all those things, even if I don't go back for another degree. You know, there are plenty of classes you can take. There are plenty of interesting people you can connect with. So going through the fantasy and really stepping in and imagining it will give you a lot of information about what is motivating for you. And so the minute you notice something that you think, I would like that, but it's impossible, write it down, imagine it. And who knows? You know, the beautiful thing is if you write it down and you begin to fill out the detail of, you know, what is it specifically, not just like, I want to work in this job, but what are you doing in that job? What are your interactions like? What type of projects are you working on? The more you fill it out, I think you'll be surprised at how quickly you may find opportunities to do those things. I wanted to do this talk about this particular, this is one thing that gets in the way of people setting goals and as a result, achieving those goals. And I wanted to really make it clear so that if you catch yourself doing that, you can try something else. And I really respect, because I used to do that and I still do it sometimes, where this idea that, oh, I don't want to picture it because I don't want to get my hopes up. And it's like, okay, you don't have to get your hopes up, but you can enjoy this rich fantasy at least, and you can learn from that. And hopefully you can build some of that into your life, whatever you're doing. So the minute you notice something you like, write it down, fill out as much detail as you can, and then step into the idea of like imagining that it's a done deal. It's already happened. You've been in that job for not just, you didn't just walk in the door, you've been there for a couple months and you're getting good at it now, or whatever that fantasy is for you. And just see what happens, see what kind of richness that can bring for you. What it does at a minimum is it tells your brain what direction you're moving in. When we have a rich goal, at least our brain knows like, I'm trying to get across town. That's the direction. That's where I want to walk. Whereas very often, if you just have a bunch of ideas about what you don't like, that's where your attention goes. So this at least gives you a nice target that you can move towards. So have some fun with that.